Hello everyone. I am John Kaku from Tokyo, Japan. Today I talk about early intervention to make no-extraction orthodontics possible with a liner. Let me introduce myself. I study dentistry in Tokyo Dental College and receive residency at the University of California, San Francisco, USA, and certificate of orthodontics and MSc degree from Boston University. A little bit of background about my family. My father is from Hong Kong. He came to Japan to study dentistry. My father met Japanese girl. She was movie actress, and they married each other. And my father decided to live in Japan, open his office, which is 1961. So this is 60 years anniversary for our office. I met my wife in same dental school, and we studied together in the States. My wife received pediatric dentistry, and I study orthodontics. Now, 60 years later, how our office look like, I want to show you. My classmate now became a chairman of orthodontic department at University of Missouri, Kansas City. So I sometimes teach at some university program. And today I want to share with you my aligner experience to you. She is a professor from Stanford University in psychology. And she is stating skill and knowledge can be acquired through experiences and challenges. My Invisalign treatment, I didn't really receive much training. I just challenge and experiences enhance my technique. So my Invisalign aligner journey began 2006. That time, I focused many of Invisalign cases is pretty much all adult. However, this is one of the journal from Invisalign company and focus me to tell the story how increase my cases. I started many cases immediately after I challenging some teen cases. Because when I started 2006, all of our cases are adult. But from 2011, I start to challenge more young patients. So 2011, when we started teen Invisalign cases, the cases are only 16% of total Invisalign cases. But 2014, this become almost 50-50. And 2019, which become 60% children, 40% adult. This is almost reverse. If we start to see those teen cases, the children, we will do class 2 to class 1 by molar distalizations, and the children cannot take often PBS impression, so we scan all the time. And we have in Japan many class 3 cases as well, so that we show parents for the consultation how we correct those cases. And many crowding, we try to develop transverse dimensions. And class 3 cases, we sometimes start very young patients, such like 6 years old, 7 years old children. So today, all those cases I wanted to share with you, and I hope you can learn something from my presentation today. Well, first of all, why Invisalign? Why aligner orthodontics? This is under COVID-19. We supposed not to have big party or big meal. Many people come together and eat something. It's not really good way to do it. So this professor, the paper said, if you want to be happier, it might be wise to shift some of your consumption away from material goods and a bit more towards experiences. So the experiences are very important to be happy in these days. So this is car industry and how car company wants to make people happy. They try to provide, it's not only the conventional regular car, but they can have some extraordinary experience from the digital world.
I'm doing a car review. The key looks like a toy. Like a toy. Put the key in my pocket. I'm walking to the car. Boom. Wow. The door opens for me. Automatically. I sit down. I hit the brake. Door stops. There is no buttons. It's all touch screen. Every seat in the car is heated, right? I can heat the steering wheel. This is how you can move around the music where you want most of the sound to be. No way. For a little park icon. So what he's going to do is he's going to throw it in reverse. And now it's going to auto park him into the spot. Watch this. Let go of everything. No foot on the gas. Nothing. No brakes. This is so dumb, dude. The car is turning itself. Doesn't hit the side of the curb at all. All right, so he has the key in his pocket. He's walk away like you're going to Chipotle. There he goes. Bye. Car door closes itself and locks.
In these days, today, the purpose-driven company, what kind of purpose your company has, and the buyers, what is you are believing is a kind of important to become successful market. Why I use Invisalign? There are so many different kind of aligner in the market. One is a CleanCheck 3D control. This is much easier with other competitors' aligner software. And iTero outcome simulator and time lapse. I use those software all the time. So this is very important for me. Optimize attachments. Attachments are really created from biomechanical concepts, which makes sense. Sometimes the patient, very difficult to use rubber bands, so mandibular advancement with precision wings sometimes eliminate the need of those rubber bands. And the patient with very early mixed dentition who doesn't have all adult teeth, so it means that the baby teeth come out and permanent teeth coming in, we can predict the size of the future permanent teeth so that during the growth and development, we can correct some of the problems. I received my orthodontic training in the United States at the Boston University. When I was in the program, Dr. Gennari was a chairman, and Dr. Settlin was a part-time instructor, and the Greenfield is an alumni. So I learned so much from them. Today, my concept of orthodontics with aligner, which is more oriented diagnosis, which I explain to you later. He is Roger Levine. He's a dentist and MBA. He comes American Association of Orthodontists meeting every year and talk about business of orthodontic world. And he is telling that the difficult part of the orthodontic business is that the flap productions, staff issues, high stress levels, low income, not enough new patients, and excessive overhead, chaotic schedule, and poor case acceptance, ineffective marketing. So the first one is a flat productions. We have no growth in the past 3 years. There is too much competition. Well, I think it's an insanity. The same things over and over again and expecting the different results. In order to be a positive about our number of new patients, we may need to challenge something new. So maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, we took previous impressions, but today all of impressions become scanning. And then now I want to show you one of my teen case. I believe that if the teeth are not totally erupt, Invisalign treatment is impossible because the teeth are not there. So this is one of my early case that I didn't think Invisalign can do. So first of all, I'm looking at molar positions because molar-oriented diagnosis. They are very constricted each other, and permanent canine is coming in from above lateral incisors. And posterior segments are slightly inclined forward, and constriction of premolars, a major rotation of the molars, which make the teeth crowding on the front. Many of orthodontic diagnoses, if it's too much crowding and space analysis, this case may indicate extractions. if you start with conventional edgewise orthodontics, one of the problems is the soft tissue inflammations. Patient has a very poor oral hygiene and deep oral bite. This may not be very easy with fixed appliances. So we are looking at frontal view. This is a panoramic X-ray, then eye mask. Here, the position of the roots are relatively good, so evenly positions. But if I mask root positions and then look at the crown, crowns are all over the place, making a lot of crowding. So in this way, if you put the brackets on, yellow line indicates the long axis of the teeth, and then put the brackets and the night eye wires, the root position will be displaced because the moment of the force created around the brackets. But if you design your clean check Invisalign treatments, you maintain the root positions and then only crown uprighting. Then, after leveling and alignments, the blue line indicates brackets and wires after leveling and alignments. But in Invisalign, you maintain the root positions. These red dots are almost coincident with lower midline, which reduce around the tripping. Now, we see these patients, and patient come the first visit. Our office, every new patient, we use a scanner. So I want to share with you how we see new patients. And this is a short clip movies. Now, when the scanning was done, our staff is making the 3D control and then setup. And the patient is in the consultation room, and our treatment coordinator explained about our office hours and what time open and close and where is restroom and clinical areas. And behind the scene, our staff members making some setup. In this way, our office staff need to know some consensus. And we need to create the rules. For example, if they are gum receding, should not expand. And we have some extraction decision factors for extraction, no extractions. Sometimes the profile protrusive or straight, and protrusive is extractions, and anterior inclinations is really severe and we tend to extract, or major inclination of the teeth, constriction of the arch, the molar rotations, bite is open or deep, mandibular plane angle, and soft tissue recessions. Crowding is more than 8 millimeter, and patient cooperations is good or not, and patient perceptions for extraction or extractions. So those are some of the factors we need to make decisions whether extract or not. If the majorly rotated molars, 83% of maloccluded patients present major rotated maxillary first molars, according to the literatures, so that we can rotate molars distal way, then we have 2 millimeter space automatically. So the staff understands if we have cases that severely majorly rotated teeth, then we can make those space. The goal of rotations is that the distal buccal cusp of the first molar passing lingual cusp is touching the canine is the goal. And also, we need to know how uprighting transverse molars. This is the article to detect to find anterior component of occlusal force and post-retention crowding. So according to these literatures, the contact is very strong in no extraction cases between second premolar and first molar, first premolar, second molar, premolar, and first premolar and the canine. If their contacts are very strong in no extraction group, there will be a tendency that are going to be relapse. Extraction group, if second premolar and first molar contacts are very strong, most probably teeth start to crowding again. So in that regards, if you see those two cases, molars are majorly rotated and lingually inclined, there will be some component of the force making constrictions of arches, making post-treatment crowding. So I try to upright those buccal teeth all the time. And then our staff members with itero elements adjusting those outcomes. This is rotations. We use touch panel to adjust. Distalization also, we use touch panel to move. However, the small movement, some rotations, and maybe some intrusions, we use the bar at the bottom of the screen. So I show you some movies about it. So the first visit consultations after you setting up the data, and then you need to send those data to the patient's mobile phone. So we sent 2 emails. One has some password and copy and paste to the box that we sent another mail. Then patient now is able to see those 3D images on the mobile phone. In this way, the patient can bring back those images to discuss with a family member whether start or not. Then the image is now also available to our computer in the consultation room. Then now I am calm in the consultation room, and in front of me, I have intraoral photos, some x-rays, and before treatment images and after treatment images. So in this way, we can talk about what will be the problem if you don't start treatment and how it will be at the end of treatment. So now the patient is ready to start. Patient accepted to start treatment. Now we need to make Invisalign, we need to make aligners. So in this way, the first 3D control will be used during the first consultation with iTero, but after patient consultation completes, then we start to fabricate Invisalign aligners. So now the images are sent from iTero, and then Invisalign company sent us the images. Now we use 3D control, and we try to intrude, extrude, and translations, back linear adjustment with the bar, distalizations, and measurizations, and those are all can be adjusted with a clean check. So the clean check, we rotate motors. There are major rotations and distal rotations in the different bars. So we use many times the distal rotation with the first motor, major rotation with second motors. And crown angulations, we want to control major distal angulations. And root control, torque adjustments. And the last multi-plane show us all different arrows come on one screen, and we can adjust. So now we receive this data for my particular patient, and now this patient doesn't have permanent canine yet. So in this way, we want to create enough space for the future permanent canine to come. So we have pontic, and we have another other side of the canines there. So we measure the same size of the pontic, and then make enough space. There are some arch development, transverse adjustments, and this is a lower arch. As you see, if we are flaring so much of the lower incisors, but in this way you can check the root positions. Where is the root positions? If they are out of the bones, we need to adjust. And we are doing some motor rotations with 3D control. So the patient is, after 4 months, patient lost the primary canines. Then 10 months later, canines start to come down more, And 14 months, we use up and down rubber bands. And 17 months, we are pretty good, but we still need to correct the class 2 relationship. So we scan again, and some digitalizations, and upwriting those models. Some of the vertical control with aligners. And then we have now the second models are coming in. We wanted to control the second model positions. So we completed the 23 months later. If we see it, the primary teeth present in the mouth. During the treatment, the primary teeth come out, permanent canine guided into one between two relationship, and case completes. So we completed 23 months, and to me, such a crowded case, it's not so bad. I also want to show very severely majorly rotated and then constricted. So we are uprighted, maybe some of IPR on anterior teeth and premolars, then we are pretty in good shape. So this is pretty much the invisible lip bumper effect. We didn't use lip bumper, but it's such like a lip bumper. And you can see the upper. We adjust distal rotation of the molars, transverse adjustment with Invisalign, which is almost similar to transparabar adjustments. And molar rotations are corrected without transparabar. So before and after occlusal view and side view of patient profile, and then smile at the end of treatment. Where every patient, we start from mixed dentitions, we need to make retainer every time you scan. Because when we submit new aligners, then it doesn't make any sense to take another alginate impressions to provide another retainer, bring back home. So this is how we make retainer, immediate retainer for teens. So now I want to share with you some of the class 3 cases. The class 3 case, the patient doesn't show any upper incisors at the beginning of treatment in this particular case. According to servers, if upper aligners are touching, upper incisors are touching the lower lip and parallel each other, which is attractive smile, but which is opposite curve on the picture on the right is not attractive. And the upper teeth is supposed to be showing 2/3 of the incisor when relaxed. But this amount of incisor showing, you are going to lose as you age. For example, if you're under 30 years old, you're supposed to show 3.4 millimeter of incisors when relaxed, but it's become 1.6 millimeter. You are 40 years old, and 1 millimeter, 50 years old, and 60 years old, you are showing 0.5, and you are over 60, you are not showing any upper incisor when relaxed. Well, I just use one of pictures, and former President Bush doesn't show any upper incisor when relaxed, and this is former Prime Minister of Japan, Mr. Koizumi, doesn't show any incisor, but the thumb showing upper incisors. Well, for class 3 elastic, if we use all the time to correct, well, the class 3 elastic tends to extrude lower incisors more, than which make lower incisor extrusions. This is the case showing to the 1996 AJO class 3 corrections with open bite, some class 3 elastics, up and down elastic, and then finishing the case. The cases are properly finished, receive contacts on the front, but the patient doesn't show any upper teeth because lower incisors are extruded. So in this way, we need to control incisor positions with clean check. So extrusion, intrusion can be adjusted with 3D control, amount of extrusion, intrusions. So in these class 3 cases, I want to make intrusion of the lower arch for the patient can show upper teeth at the end of treatment. So this is the case when we start. I don't see any incisors, and cephalometric X-ray overjet is minus 2.6 and overbite 4.1. So this is a 3D models when we started. So now I decided to make Invisalign. So we have a lot of lower incisor intrusions. You can see. I also want you to look at behind the lower incisor, we have small attachments on the clean check, but this attachment we are not going to bond acrylic. The shape of the aligners are like bump, but we bite ramp, but we don't really bond any composite behind lower incisors. But aligner was made to create such like bump. So there are some invisible bite ramps, but we don't bond them. Only the aligner shape is look like that. So 4 months later, we see some improvement, and 6 months later, teeth are jumped, and now we are coordinating the midline, class 3 elastic, and 26 months later, we completed. So we are pretty much good. Interdigitations and class 3 corrections can be done. So you can see that lower incisor intrusions, upper incisor coming forward, and then completed the case. Cephalometric comparisons, 26 months later, cephalometric measurements, and panoramic X-rays. So we see those views, patient profile, making more straight profile, and then we can see patient upper incisor when relaxed. So we are pretty much receive good control of incisor vertical positions. Invisalign has some features that there are precision wings which make the jaw going forward, which is really similar to concept of functional appliances. Every 2 months, we receive 2 millimeter anterior-posterior adjustments, and several corrections are made until patients gain class 1 positions. Then finally, patient finish jump, then receive transitional bite, which make 4 additional aligners. You submit the case for additional aligners, and then you need 1 month. So we have 4 aligners, passive Invisalign, until you wait those appliances. Advantage of this appliance is that even during permanent teeth are coming in, before completing level and alignments, we can start to adjust anterior-posterior adjustment, because if it's a bracket and wires, you need to have a rigid wire before the class 2 elastics. So that is one of the advantage of wings. Now I want to review about some literatures about functional appliances. And Punchers has some studies, and they try to see what is really happening to correct the skeletal class 2 patients using Herb's appliance. Herb's appliance, those are class 2 6.7 millimeter patients, which supposed to be all corrected orthopedic corrections, but only 43% are skeletal and 57% are dental. So even you use a functional appliance, 60% are dental. Well, among those 43%, 37% are lower jaw, and majority of the corrections is upper incisor changes. Now, I want to focus how these lower jaw corrections are maintained for long term. The Wieslander, the orthodontist in Switzerland, tried to find out if the patient becomes 17 years old, how effective those functional appliances for long term. The average 3.9 millimeter protrusive effect become 1.5 out of retentions. And 2 millimeter therapeutic increase of condyle Gnatian distance decreased to 1.3 if the patient becomes 17 years old. So for long term, the corrections is very small. This is another study, 47 patient functional appliances, and 27 patients drop because patient didn't cooperate. Maybe appliance broke and appliance didn't work out. So best of the 20 patients selected to see what happened those functional appliances. And then compare with some control Barrington growth study. 9 times of the cephalometric measurement, initial, beginning of functional appliance activations, end of functional activations, during the functional appliance phase, end of wearing functional appliance, and beginning of edgewise treatment after 9 months, 20 months, 1 year later. They took all the cephalometrics and then they measure and try to find out the differences. The red line is the mandibular advancements, and blue is a control. During the activations of 2 millimeter adjustments, then it's very growth happening, but after class 2 correction completed, now amount of growth is less than control samples. Now this is the mandibular length, and you can see from the beginning, and then after 15 months, at the beginning of functional appliances, lower jaw is longer, but at the end, 4 years later, the differences is less than 1 millimeter. Well, those 1 millimeter we're talking about from condyle to chin. Those 1 millimeter doesn't really correct much about teeth because we are all dentists correcting skeletal class 2 to correct to class 1. Occlusal plane, how much is this 1 millimeter? This is maybe less than 0.8. So 0.8 millimeter doesn't correct skeletal class 2. So to me, those functional appliances may not be very effective for long term. I am in Japan. We have many class 3s. So this patient is over 6 years old, and patient is functional class 3. So the patient bring the jaw forward all the time. Well, if you make the jaw forward, and then there are some growth happening behind the condyle and filling the fossa to make the lower jaw big. Well, this particular case, lower incisors are severely protruded, and there is no second molars on this side. If we maintain the root of lower canine premolars and molars, and then we just uprighting crowns, we automatically create some space. According to Hasegawa, if you are uprighting 10 degrees, you make 7 millimeter. If you are uprighting 15 degrees, you are creating 10 millimeters. So in this particular case, I am going to correcting angulations and then finish class 2, class 3 to class 1. So the patient, now we are 11 months later, our anterior segments are corrected even 6 years old. 13 months later, the canine relationship is even now class 2. and 23 months later, we are completed the case. So before and after the treatment, if I am able to correct 6 years old functional class 3 like this, why these cases did not become surgical case? So I don't think that the class 2 skeletal, you make jaw forward all the time, making big lower jaw. So this case, I was just uprighting the crown of lower arch. So the root position of the lower teeth didn't change much, but only the crown positions. Invisalign are very good at crown uprighting. So we can control all of those corrections with class 3 elastic and Invisalign. And according to the cephalometrics, correction is all teeth compensations from the skeletal problems. So we are now going to see some literatures. The McNamara also tried to find out any differences with pendulum. Pendulum appliance is tooth movement, the tooth movement compensations for class 2 to class 1, and comparison with the Herbst. According to the study, they could not discover any differences in statistic numbers. So it means that at this point, we don't really see much that scientific evidence that you bring jaw forward, then make big lower jaw. Dr. McNamara recently published that cervical vertebral maturations are very important for class 2 to class 1. So this is a stage 1 to 6, and the shape of cervical maturations. And stage 2, there are some concavity is present at the lower border of C2, and body of C3, C4 are still trapezoid shape. And in clinical situations, something like this X-ray. We have stage 3 positions. The lower border of both C2, C3 are present and concavities, and body of C3, C4 may be either trapezoid or rectangular horizontal in shape. And in this way, the mandible growth will occur during the year after this stage. And stage 4 and stage 5 and stage 6, and they are kind of a little bit too late for correcting class 2 to class 1 because all the jaw growth completed. So the class 2 treatment should be most effective for CS2 and CS3. And Tommaso in Italy, he studied all those cases and he recommended to use Invisalign precision wings for CS2 and CS3. Well, let's say this is my cases that I try to correct to class 2 to class 1. And this is a full cusp of class 2s. We have 8.5 millimeter overjet, but now it's a perfect time of the shape of cervical and CS3, stage 3, the perfect time for class 2 corrections. So we have clean check before the second molar eruptions. It's the perfect time to use it in Invisalign. Deep over bite, we try to make flatten the curve of Wilson's and curve of speeds, some intrusion of the lower incisors, and then retracting molars, premolar and canine incisors, sequential distalizations of Invisalign. And that's the perfect time for molar distalization before second molars are fully erupt. And I have some bite ramp because a deep bite case, it's better to have bite ramp while we are trying to make leveling the curve of speed on the lower arch and incisor intrusion of lower. Five months later, we see some class 2 corrections. 8 months later, we see some intrusion corrections and class 2 to class 1 corrections. Now we have a space behind the lateral incisors, so we can retract them back. And now we are doing incisor retractions. And 20 months later, we are in pretty good shape in very solid class 2 to class 1. I wanted to control the second molar positions because now the second molars are there and my treatment's completed at this point. So full cast of the class 2 and deep over bite with a sequential distalization. This is not mandibular advancement. This is a distalization. Then we finish the case. So now we are in good shape. Deep over bite corrected and before and after treatment. And the profile, I think it's look good. It's almost like orthopedic corrections. Maybe you may ask why you didn't use precision wing and mandibular advancement. Well, this case, deep over bite, then if you make jump the mandibular advancements, maybe you may create some posterior open bite. So distalization, you always have positive contacts. So I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to use. Now I want to share with you the case with mandibular advancement. This patient, she has some handicap. She's blind. For her, it's very difficult to use class 2 elastic because she's blind. She's handicapped. But she is a kind of late in terms of maturation of cervical. 9.5 millimeter overjet, but stage 5, it's kind of late. 1 year before this stage is already peak of the mandibular growth. So this is my clean check. You can see. So I wanted to level underline first. Then I have mandibular advancement. Because if I don't have leveling and alignment of the curve of speed, then you jump, patient has no posterior contacts, then it's very unstable. So I want to make curve of speed first before jump. So this is my clean check. Then 9 months later, we see some intrusions and we start to see some crust corrections from jump. Then I decided to go additional aligners. So there are still class 2s, so we continue correction with jump. Again, this patient is handicapped, she's blind, class 2 elastic rubber bands wearing very difficult for this particular patient. But she was very cooperative to wear aligners. Today, sometimes precision wing aligner is not stable. I sometimes attach wings and attachments on the premolars. So design attachment of the first molar to make stabilize mandibular advancement aligners, enhance stability of Invisalign. So this is 18 months later. We can see amount of overjet reduced, and then good interdigitations, and then another scan, and we want to finish the case. So one more jump, then we control. And good interdigitations. I wanted to make some dark triangle between two centrals. I wanted to adjust those dark triangles. Now you can see dark triangle is minimized. Then I decided this is pretty good. So we decided to complete this case. So if we look at the case that the patient cannot wear any rubber bands, then we are pretty corrected class 2 to class 1. So I think it's a great corrections for this kind of situations. Before and after panoramic X-ray, the third molar still present, and lateral view of the photos, some improvements of profile, and the patient smile. So now I want to share with you some of very difficult treatment.
Ethan? Door! Open the door! Yeah, I'm trying. Oh my God!
I think that every one of you has such a impossible case in every dentist office. But this is one of my impossible case. He was a high school student and he played baseball at the school. He received the ball in the face and he lost teeth. The school contacted the mother contacted to me. So he came to my office immediately after injury. So now the two teeth are out. The mother was crying on the phone. My son didn't have any cavities and he was very healthy, but he lost two teeth. And I took x-rays. There is no teeth there. It's not broken teeth. It's out of the socket. And cephalometric x-ray shows upper and lower incisors are very protrusive. And panoramic x-rays. So two teeth are lost by sports accident. And I also found he is also congenitally missing lateral incisors. So I needed to discuss with mother what we are going to do for this case. First of all, he's missing lateral incisors. And the midlines are totally off, and he doesn't have any teeth. Option is opening space, and another option is closing. Well, if we open the space and then implant, what happens? This is the journal from International Journal of Periodontics and Restorative Dentistry in 2003. The boy received accident and he lost teeth. The dentist feel that if you don't do anything until patient become 20 years old, the socket of the teeth, extraction socket, become very shrink. So better to have some implants at the 10 years old children to maintain the bone housing. But what happened after? 13 years after, 3 years after he becomes 13, the edge of incisors are so different, only 3 years. And then crown replacement was made immediately. But what happens if the patient become 19 years and 9 years after the accident? Well, the gap is more again, and then patient after 2 years and then 4 years, now the patient become 25 years old. Huge gap. There is a difference between 21 years and 25 years. So today, many dentists recommend if patient over 19 years old, 20 years old, maybe ready for implants on the front teeth. But there are some gaps may happen for long term. The reason is that our teeth are growing vertically for passive growth. So the teenagers, there are some changes, but even your adults, there are changes as well. Patient 13 years old, after this replacement of the crown, continuously changing the height of the crown. The common complication of the single implants, progressive infraocclusions, blue coloring of labial gingiva, visibility of metal or porcelain abutment over time, interdental recessions, and more important, no long-term observations. I need to consider if we open space for missing teeth. This is article from Marco Rossa in Italy, JCO 2010. Space open if the patient 20 years old. Now implant was placed, beautifully done, but this normal height, after 5 years, if the patient becomes 25 years old, now lateral incisor gum height is higher than central. This is not good. If the space closed, then patient receive veneers after space close. After 19 years later, the gum height are still good. So long-term stability of gum heights are more predictable for space closing. Some of the considerations is that if we totally close, it doesn't look natural looking. So in this way, we always need to adjust height of the gum, and also we need to adjust shape of the canine look like laterals. So the canine need to bring down, premolar need to bring up. So at the end, with veneers, the shape of the canine and shape of the premolars are corrected. So this was described from Marco in Japan, and he taught us when he was there, this is a before treatment, and this is after treatment. So now my patient come in possible case in my office. This patient not only upper incisor missing, but he lost 2 teeth on the lower. So what you are going to do? It's a very difficult situations. I told the mother, I never done 2 incisor extraction in my orthodontic professions in the past, but my patient's mother telling me, Dr. Kaku, you can do it. You can close this space. Wow, mother are so strong. So I need to do my best. But I never done before such a big space closing with Invisalign. I was hesitate to do. So that time, I read an article from 2013, micro osteoperforations. You make some scar on the arch, then you try to move teeth. If you make some micro osteoperforations, the study tried to find out difference any micro osteoperforation with orthodontics or only orthodontics, how different. According to this study, only orthodontic movement is about a half or maybe 1/3 compared with orthodontics is micro osteoperforations. Those are much faster movement happening. So in this case, if we do micro osteoperforations, increasing bone metabolism, decreasing bone density, and increasing rate of tooth movement. So I was making micro osteoperforation during the space closing every 3 to 4 months to achieve our treatment goal. So this is my clean check. You can see that the big space closing. And you see, we have big space closing. In those cases, you always need to set big, long attachments to prevent crown tipping, more of the root control happening. So optimize attachment on the canine. Long rectangular attachments are placed next to extraction site. So this is before treatments, and then we start aligners. I did micro osteoperforation from the first aligners. 0M means when we started. Then we have 3 months later, some of the space closing happening, diastema is gone, and 6 months later, we see about 1 incisor space close 9 months later, 2 teeth space are pretty much closed. So now we did refinement, additional aligners, uprighting incisor angle, and continuing micro osteoperforations 3 to 4 months intervals, and then 15 months later, now I want to control the second molar positions, and took me about 15 months to do it, and I completed the case. So to me, such a big case and big space before treatment, so 2 teeth are lost, and then we need to close with Invisalign. This was almost impossible for me, but this case, I was able to close the gap with combinations, micro osteoperforations, and Invisalign. Frontal view. You can see that 2 teeth lost from baseball, but now pretty much closed. And before and after treatment. And frontal view, patient smile. And now he was very happy at the end of treatment. Now I want to talk about some early treatment. Patients are aged from 6, 7, 8. And I want to tell you about why we need to do phase 1 treatment, and how is Invisalign, and how with Invisalign first, and what will be the future. Well, why we need to do first phase of treatment for such young patients. According to American Association of Orthodontics website, they are recommending and visiting orthodontic office age 7, because orthodontics can maybe improve guide of the jaw growth, lower the risk of trauma to protruded front teeth, and correct harmful oral habits, improve appearance, guide permanent teeth into more favorable positions, improve the way lip meet, and those are main reasons that orthodontists can do it. So as I mentioned, I was attended Boston University, and when I was accepted, some of the manual from the school was sent to me, and I needed to read what the department is approaching first phase of treatment. That time, orthodontic department at Boston University, and this is the list of the phase 1 cases we should start. Especially unilateral or bilateral posterior crossbite with or without mandibular shift, and incisor in crossbite. These can be leading trauma of incisor with a possibility of loosening, and fracture or gingival recessions, as well as wear faucets. And these can be either individual teeth or posterior class 3 crossbites. And ectopic eruption of the teeth, particularly when eruption of the teeth is blocked, and severe protrusions if maxillary incisors. And those are the typical cases that we should handle phase 1 cases. We have so much of crowding in Japanese children, and many orthodontists tend to think about expansions. But in orthodontic professions, expansion is debatable for long-term stabilities. And one of the criticized about expansion is that if there is no crossbite, then you just expand posterior teeth. What happened in the molars? This becomes scissors bite. It means that you are not going to gain functional bite at the end of phase 1 treatment. And then if you do expansion with fixed type of expansion appliance, such like Hyrax type of rapid expanders, what happens? There are some crown tipping of molars, crown tipping of premolars, and those are happening with a fixed type of expansion appliances. Another criticize about expansion is that 1 millimeter expansion doesn't give us 1 millimeter arch length. 1 millimeter expansion can only give us 0.7 millimeter arch length, so which is not really effective in terms of gaining arch length. If we expand, another criticize about expansion is that the curve of Wilson. Curve of Wilson is more and more. The bite occlusion is also not really ideal functions. So some orthodontists doesn't like to expand arches because of this happens. But Marco in Italy did some expansion with the primary teeth and tried to find out what happens for the future permanent teeth at the end of occlusions. So they took CBCT before and after treatments and then see what happens. So according to the studies, the Wilson curve flattened significantly with expansion appliance with a primary teeth. Let's take a look his case on the journal. There is no crossbite on permanent molars, but expansion appliance are set on primary teeth and then expanded. And this is another article you are looking at. First molars are not crossbite at all, but the lateral incisors are crossbites. And he expanded with expansion appliance on the primary teeth, and it's become almost buccal crossbites. But you can see lateral incisor without any touching on the lateral incisor, teeth are drifting forward. And at the end, even he never touched incisors, but he correct the crossbite and arch length. So occlusal view, you can see that anterior crossbites presence, expansion appliance on the primary teeth, and then corrected crossbites. So I was doing this kind of approach. Phase 1 treatment with Marco type of expansion appliance, and then I correct, then I wait all the permanent teeth are coming in, then start Invisalign is one of the options I was doing in that case. But now, Invisalign first, which means early mixed dentitions, you can start to control those transverse adjustments. So how we can handle it, and how we do without any 2x4 brackets and wires to align teeth. Invisalign contacted me maybe May or June in 2017 and tell us, "Hi, Dr. Kaku, we are ready to make new concept of Invisalign for very early ages, and you want to try." So I start to use those aligners about 4 years ago. First of all, if I challenge those appliances, I wanted to measure how effective they are in terms of time. Fixed type of appliance, you need 45 minutes examinations, also Invisalign. But the records taking, also the same, 30 minutes. But the consultations with expansion appliance and the brackets and wires or the spacers for the phase 1, you need 45 minutes. But consultation with Invisalign and the scan, maybe you reduce about 15 minutes. Patient need to receive expansion appliance, you need to fit the bands and impressions. You need 45 minutes, you need to replace spacers. And then you need to cement expansion appliance and you need to exercise some screw adjustments. Invisalign placement only 30 minutes. Wire adjustment need monthly visits every 15 minutes at appointment 180 minutes. But Invisalign we see every 2 months, so become 90 minutes. And then fixed type of patient, you need to remove RPE and take impressions. And scanning, making retainer is only 15 minutes. Palatal plate placement, 15 minutes. Retainer placement, 15 minutes. At the end, fixed type of appliance need total 495 minutes. But Invisalign Teen is only 315 minutes. So that in terms of time, we are very time effective for aligners. And in my office, because Invisalign charge us more expensive compared to laboratory for expansion appliance or the brackets and the wires, I increase my fee 10%. I was afraid if I increase the fee, the case diminish. However, when I started 2017, this is the first time I started Invisalign first. That was 100%. 2 years later, I increased 25 times more. So that I was kind of afraid, more expensive, the parents doesn't choose. But now I want to compare with the price of coffee. This is a coffee from 7-Eleven, Lawson, and Family Mart. And they are in Japan. It's not so expensive compared to Starbucks. Starbucks coffee is approximately 3 times more, but Starbucks are still popular in Japan. So I want to share with you the video how the parents think about children.
私の方からばっかりで、メールを入れても全然既読になってなかったし、10日後に見たりしますね。思い出すっていうよりも、もう毎日メール
が来てるか来てないか確認に見ますのでね、だからもう毎日ですよね、ある面ではね。はい。
思い出す。月に、週に2回ぐらいですか。はい。
お父さんいつも仕事してくれてありがとうとか、そういう手紙が嬉しかったですね。会社のカバンの中にクリアファイルに大事に入れてます。
何もらったかなって思って、なんかその時にもしかしたらおもちゃとか買ってもらったんだろうなとは思うんですけど。
引っ越しの日に家族で弟もみんなで荷物持って大きな車で引っ越ししたんですけど、帰りは大泣きでした。自分で全然なんでこんなに泣くんだろうって思うほど泣いて、
なんか一生懸命用意してもらったのを思い出すね。
もう決めたからには、笑って見送ってあげようと思って、そのまま後ろ向きで手をこう上げたまま行っちゃったから、私はずっと後ろ姿をこう見て振り向くかなと思ってたけど、全然振り向かずにそのまま行っちゃいましたね。
最初の1ヶ月ぐらいはもうただただしんどいっていうのがもう正直な感想で。
自分が思ってる以上にすごく気にかけてくれたんだな、心に残ったというか、嬉しかったですね。
結構未だに心配してるんだなって思いました。でも恥ずかしかったです。
大事にしなきゃなと思いました。
Well, I lost my wife about 5 years ago. So I have only one children. And I know that, if my son needs something that's need, then that's really understanding that the value of extra cost, I'm willing to pay. Now, after Invisalign first phase of treatment completed, then phase 2 treatments the patient need to think about. 2017, who received phase 1 treatment, then now phase 2 treatment is ready. Only 20% of patients receive Invisalign 2017. But 2019, we have approximately 84% of patients selecting Invisalign. So the parents understanding the value of extra cost, they're willing to pay. So this is the article. The teeth are totally erupt and then wrong positions. They tend to rotate back. So RED rotations before transeptal fibers have fully developed will probably diminish the amount of relapse. So those are one of the typical case phase 1 treatment should be approached. So I was approaching with Invisalign first with early mixed dentitions and using the primary teeth and the anchor unit and then make expansions. So those are the case that we are expanding the case with primary teeth. In this case, we control the molar positions mechanically, which is different from Marco, but many primary teeth are moving for this movement. You can see that 6 months later, we see that crossbites corrected on the lateral incisors, and then some of vertical positions changed. And you can see some transverse adjustments, arch form changes on the occlusal photos, and lower arch. You can see that incisor alignment improve. So 11 months later, we are almost good, and we finish approximately 1 year later. Occlusal view, you can see lateral incisors are corrected, and then finish the case. So in this case, we are able to complete very severely crowded crossbite case, so the early intervention can be achieved with Invisalign First. Most probably, the most of the case for Invisalign First we need to finish that entire treatment. So before and after treatment. We have some class 3 cases as well, especially for young ones are functional class 3s. And functional class 3 are common in our young patients. And this is a very effective for our treatment, approaching early. If we don't do anything, maybe there are some teeth fracturing or recession of the gums, so we need to do the treatment. So in this case, the ABO exam, if we want to take American Board of Orthodontics, overjet is less than 0, which become a difficult case. So this is a kind of a difficult case to correct. And the width appraiser is a minus 3.7. This is kind of telling the skeletal class 3s. The skeletal class 3 maxillary deficiency, you can do surgery, camouflage treatment, or maxillary advancement. One of the typical maxillary advancement is done and corrected with a facial mask and expansion appliance. So this study tried to find out how those mechanics can correct. So there are 79 children and 8 years old, 1 year and a half treatment. And what happens? Before treatments, they are SNA, SNB, ANB are 80.4, 79.2, ANB 1.2. So at the end of treatment, ANB is 3.7. In that years, that corrections of 1 degree, so 79 children with a facial mask require 18 months to correct those A and B corrections. So now, instead of facial mask, so this particular patient's A and B is 0.4. This is worse than those average of 79 children. Now we are doing some transverse adjustments. You can see that some attachments on occlusal surface. And those occlusal surface, we don't bond any acrylic. But when patient wear aligners, patient can make some space between upper and lower incisors. And we try to retract the incisor back with elastic. And 3 months later, we are correcting class 3 and midline corrections continue, and we finish the treatment 10 months later. So the midline coordination is done, and we finish the treatment. and before and after treatment, you see the occlusal view. Arch alignment improve very different, especially the lower. And upper interdental space is also closed. Cephalometric X-ray and measurement shows that there are pretty much lower incisor positions, big change. And then you can see incisor showing from frontal view. So we have 10 months treatments. A and B differences are approximately 2.5 improvements, which is almost the same with facial mask. This is the article that the tattoo is in the monkey gums. Tattoo is moving as you move. So those fibrotic tissues are not good for long-term stability, but transseptal fibers during the distalizations are good. We have a case with removable appliance with a headgear. We have class 2 to class 1, and then I discontinue the removable appliance and I just use headgear and hoping the teeth drifting. Now, without touching any canine premolars, canines are drifted to class 2 to class 1. So in this way, you don't need so long bracket and wires. And in this case, I put the brackets and wires and then finish. This is Dr. Greenfield's textbook. And in his textbook, there are primary second molars in the mouth and then modified Nance appliance to distalize. During the distalizations, primary second are touching the premolars. The future permanent teeth transseptal fiber bring the tooth together with the first molars. So sometimes without any touching tooth, class 2 to class 1, premolars are drifting. So in this particular case, we have crowding on the anterior teeth, but during the distalizations, I align incisors simultaneously. I was hoping during the molar distalizations, then maybe future permanent teeth will come into class 1 positions. You can see that 5 months later, we have some space between second primary molars and first molars. And it means that we have some distalization happening. Occlusal view, you can see more about molar distalizations between first molars and second primary molars. Lower incisor alignment improving. Seven months later, 9 months later, and then we finish 1 year later. You can see that occlusal view, we see some molar distalization 5 months later, and then we finish 1 year later. Make comparisons before and after treatment. Arch form changes, V-shaped arch to broad arch forms. Well, if lower incisor angle is not appropriate, maybe we can correct for the phase 2s. But now we have good contact on the front teeth. Some of the articles telling us class 2 division 2 lower canine intercanine width is less than regular bite. And correcting the deep bite cases, maybe intrusion mechanics is very important. So class 2 division tumor occlusion characterized by normal transverse dimension in the maxillary and the mandibular posterior segments, but reduced intercanine arch dimension in the mandible. So long-term stability of overbite treatment is not good. So much relapse for long-term. So some of the research suggests early interventions, early corrections of intrusions are very important. So we have cases that very early mixed dentitions, we use mechanics. 3 months later and 6 months later, we see incisor intrusions. 8 months later, and then at that time, I took scan for additional aligners for this particular case, and additional intrusions to get appropriate overbite. And 16 months later, we finish the case. So in that case, we have good appropriate overbite, the midline coordinations, the lower incisor improvements, so the future canine can come, make a comparison with initial cephalograms and the final cephalograms, panoramic x-rays, 60 months later, and facial photograph. So those are the typical case that we do. Some people think that the scanning for small children is very difficult. We try to make the patient comfort at the chair side, and then we tell in the patients what we are going to do. So exercise the camera in and out several times, and then we scan. I show you how we scan for the small children. Well, in my office, the small children come and we explain, we use those, we need to make a dry of the teeth, and otherwise if it's wet and the bubble, we need to scan again, so that concentrate to make the dry surface on scanning procedures. And then we ask the patients, and then try to concentrate the small monitor while we are scanning. Small windows showing where we are taking, so the children can concentrate those small windows. While we are taking, maybe the children look while we do it, maybe they can behave easier. So we spend more time, the patient, what we are going to do. So saliva is very bad while we're scanning because it's a bubble is happening. You need to stop scanning, then takes more time. So it's important spend more time to explain and then quickly take in. The motor area making bumming the children so that when you take motor scanning, you need to quickly take the images. And keep dry. Dry surface you need to make is very important. And another thing is that for the consultations, when you have new consultation for ITERO, and this is how we make. This is the outcome simulator. And when we do Invisalign first, expansion motor move first, followed by simultaneous staging. This is the typical case. Sorry. Class 2 division 2. If you making motor first and the reaction force is on the incisors, and we sometimes do. In those mechanics, the crown, the clinical crown should be long. If it's short, it's very difficult. So it's not many cases we do motor first and then primary teeth. Majority of the case, everything is a simultaneous. I did it for the class 3 case that I show. Everything simultaneous. If the teeth are short and you just move motor first and more nothing happening and then you lose mass. So I want to make everything simultaneous those cases. Now I want to conclude my presentations. This is the rugby team Japan. Well, small Japanese is not suitable to rugby football because we are so small. 2019, we had World Cup rugby in Japan, and we are Group A. Russia and Samoa lost some games during the tournament. So now Japan need to play against Scotland to represent final games. So this is the game of the night.
Welcome to Yokohama for the match many thought might never happen. Against all odds, we're here for the showdown between Japan and Scotland that will decide Pool A and determine our last Rugby World Cup quarter-finalist. Prince doing their level best to disrupt possession. There's the penalty given up. And here comes Russell, busting his way through. And Scotland have the first try of the game. Not really causing Scotland too many problems. And once more, knock them up in trouble for Fukuoka. Brilliant! Brilliant off the floor. And in goes Matsushima. Unreal. Brilliant work. Commentators clear, just as I said, Japan will causes Scotland any problems. Brilliant on the left-hand side. Some thunderous hits going in right now. The Tuscan sector is so visible out there in Japan. The offloading game is unbelievable. And so too the stepping left on is unbelievable. Inagaki goes over. Still they pour forward. Still they're creative. Looking for another attacking opportunity. Got it from Fukuoka. Irresistible. Johnson is caught. The big read here from Fukuoka, who struck the Scots in possession, and he's off. And he's away. Kaki Fukuoka. And Japan in total delirium. And they still think they have it. That's it. Tanaka has it. The countdown is on. It's there for Japan. The victory is there. And the emotion pours down from the stands here in Yokohama. Pandemonium. The Rugby World Cup has an Asian quarterfinalist for the first time. And Japan have done it at the expense of Scotland. A World Cup thriller. Japan 28, Scotland 21.
To me, that game was amazing. The coach said to find the winning advantage of Japan team is hardworking, diligent, and patient. I was thinking about Invisalign and aligner orthodontics for teens. At the beginning, I never thought about Invisalign treatment can be done for young patients, but I start to see those cases from 2011. If my cases is 100% 2020, my Invisalign team was only 7.5% at that 2011. Now I make those comparisons. Today, after approaching teens with Invisalign, my Invisalign cases dramatically increase, almost 13 times more. I never thought about it. I hope today you listen to me. Thank you very much for your 2 hours, and I hope you can learn something from me. So this is the end of my presentations. If there are some questions, I try to answer. There is the questions about how do we keep the space for erupting canine in the liners. You just, for example, if you put the Pontic, you can type you want to have Pontic on particular tooth and how many millimeters. Or maybe you can use 3D control and then move existing teeth in particular positions. I hope that helped, and I know that I received some of participants from Russia and from Spain. Thank you very much for your attention and coming to my lecture. So it's okay.